Good day, familia. This is Rafael Ray Collazo. Welcome back to the Collazo Show. The Collazo Show provides analysis and commentary at the intersection of leadership, politics, and cultura. Thank you so much for joining us. Kind of think about it like, somewhere between in the neighborhood of Rachel Maddow and the Breakfast Club or Kid Meadow, Hot 97, all them, and Joy Reid. Somewhere in there, somewhere in the middle, around the corner, is me and my intrepid group of commentators, which you're going to see more on in the coming episodes. Breaking it down con nuestro sabor. You know what I'm saying? A lot going on out here. We have to engage with it for our perspective, and in particular, tell the story that is often not heard, not just from a Latino perspective, from the perspective of real people whose real lives are being impacted by this administration and the decisions being made, not just by people in the White House and in Congress, but the personal decisions we make every single day about how to act and how to respond and how not to, which I think on some level is kind of the bigger problem. We're going to talk about in a second. Later on in the show, we're still counting in Cali. And in the Cultura segment, I want to highlight 3 Latino families that speak to the spirit of this moment that I wanted to shout out. But first, let's talk about how we weaponize, and how we should think about how the word criminal is weaponized in our country, and how that word is used to gaslight us oftentimes. I want to go back to this conversation. I'm going to keep talking about it because to me, there's nothing more important we need to be talking about. We're torturing our friends and neighbors and our relatives and our community members and the people that literally help put food on the table for us, and we're not doing enough. So let's go back to what's happening at Delaney Hall in Newark, New Jersey. ICE Delaney Hall concentration camp protests continue. It's been real messy over the last week or so. When things got to a fever pitch on Memorial Day, to the point where Governor Sherrill, along with a delegation of members of Congress led by Senator Andy Kim, have gone steadily to do federal oversight in that building with mixed results. They wouldn't let Governor Sherrill in. They wouldn't let the state health department in. And so our response was to send the state police that were actually just made things worse. Throw on top the Mayor Raz Baraka, who wants to do the right thing. I know he does. His police have not been helpful, to the point where they're actually denying people like their civil liberties along with the state police. It's hard to tell how much of this being co-signed by the governor and the mayor or when blue shows up to a situation like this, they're going to be with blue or ICE or whatever color that is, no matter what. Unfortunately, that's a cultural problem we have to deal with. That's bigger than one person in the White House. I mean, Senator Kim got pepper sprayed. I mean, the most non-confrontational, aggressive person. He got pepper sprayed. So this is literally a rogue state that we have here with this ICE, rogue paramilitary force that's terrorizing our communities. I mean, you're not allowing a member of Congress to do oversight, not allowing any of these other government agencies to come into the building. When they let Andy Kim in over the weekend, they wouldn't let him talk to anybody. And there was a very poignant video where he's saying that there's a bunch of women pointing to a woman that's curled up on a bed. I don't know if she was pregnant or just in a lot of pain. But this is just horrific. And they wouldn't even let him. They wouldn't have the human decency to let the senator, whose body pays for this building and this work, that approves the budget. So it's the equivalent of you own a house that your brother-in-law lives in, rent-free. Then when you go up to just say, hey, let me just make sure you're not ruining my house. Oh, I'll let you see the front, but I'm not going to let you go upstairs. I mean, that's the equivalent of it. Breaking the law every day. And what is this all for? They'll tell you it's to imprison the quote-unquote worst of the worst. Doesn't even make sense. It's not a legal term. According to their own numbers, according to the Department of Homeland Security's own figures, 90% of the people in that building in Delaney Hall are deemed at no risk to anybody. They're the abuelas, they're the sisters, the daughters. The working guy got no problems. The elderly got no criminal record, got no issues. According to the Deportation Data Project, this was laid out in an expose in the New York Times over the weekend. Only 13% of the people imprisoned at Delaney Hall have criminal convictions. Let me repeat that. So only 1 in 7 of them have ever been convicted of anything that are in that building. In the entire building, there's 9 people that are convicted felons. 9 out of 800. And none of those felony convictions, 0, were for murder, drug dealing, or sexual assault. We're talking about DUI, maybe a crash. Someone got bucked up. Maybe some shoplifting. Let me repeat that. There's only 9 people in that building that have criminal felony convictions, and none of them for violent crimes or large-scale drug dealing. This is torture. This ain't justice. So they're taking away rights for our families. They're torturing them. And I think they have every right to be pissed off, not just inside, but those loved ones that are outside that have been the leaders of this movement in front of Delaney Hall for over a year, who simply want they want access to make sure their family's okay. Excuse me. That the loved ones are safe. They're being fed. They're not dying. I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to do. We're all human beings, aren't we? Just because we're Spanish speaking or we're from Turkey or Paraguay, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't fucking matter. Meanwhile, in Washington, the Senate late last week passed a budget reconciliation bill. The Senate passed, fam. These Senate Republicans are so shameless. They know what's happening is wrong. De corazón, they all know. They don't care because it's minorities. There's Latinos and blacks and Arabs, and they don't care. Another $70 billion for DHS. This agency never had more than $10 billion in their budget. So now that's on top of another 190 they got last year in the big beautiful OBA bill, the big beautiful bullshit bill. So they're big. They have a budget bigger than like the Army now. This paramilitary force. For what? For 9 felonies and none of them violent. There's more criminal activity happening outside these last 2 weeks by ICE officials and these other law enforcement than anyone total has done in that building. Do the math. You've seen the videos. No somos brutal. Now, the House does the vote on the funding. I want to put in the crawl, I wouldn't bet on it that we can block it, but we still have a chance. They're going to vote on this funding bill. The House still has to pass that funding bill. So you have an opportunity to call your member of Congress. Call the switchboard number 202-224-3121. Anyone around the country, just call the House switchboard number 202-224-3121. Tell them your zip code. They'll direct you to your address. They'll elect you to your local congressperson. If your local congressperson is a Democrat, even a couple of them, who knows? So call them. And then if it's a Democrat, call the neighboring Republican one. And let them know that, you don't want your tax dollars funding torture of innocent people. And in fact, people, in the case of Delaney Hall, not one violent word of the word criminal. You don't want your tax dollars going to, slowly killing people. So we still have a window. They're not going to vote on it for probably next few days. But today, Monday, is a real big day to call. So the bigger question is, who are the criminals, Sam? Who's giving out all of our tax money to these private companies like the Geo Group to run these concentration camps? Delaney, Dilly, Delanto, all over the country. Alligator Alley, which I think they're closing because they wouldn't fit the feds never gave up the money. All that money, all that overtime that these mall cops that they're hiring to work at ICE. You see it on video. They're breaking the law every day. Serving people moldy food in a prison is not lawful. Telling people this is the free speech zone because you can't do free speech other places. Telling people you can't walk down this public street with a gas mask because you're during a protest, you might get pepper sprayed. like the senator did. I mean, that's against the First Amendment. That's against everything we're about, fam. And their excuse is these people are the worst of the worst. Oh, and by the way, it's 9 people. 9 out of 800 people here is 9 people with felonies, none of them violent. Just and I keep telling y'all, they just keep what this was about. I used to get these silly, immature fights on social media when this all started last year with people that thought they were so smart when they were trying to defend Doge. Remember that? They were trying to save money. Remember that? And I said, fam, this is all about just stealing your money. And all these excuses around waste, fraud, and abuse. And yeah, people abuse your food stamps, people abuse getting Medicaid, all that bullshit. And all they're doing is stealing your money. Where did all the oil tankers they stole from Venezuela, where did all that money go? Where'd it go? All the insider stock trades. Where's all that money? Is that money getting back to you? How about the tariffs? Where's all that money? I don't even know how that works. I mean, so what they did was they wrapped around this package of safety and macho stuff and that Uber Ultra, selling you that the problem with this country is we don't have enough tough guys like Trump in charge. And if you just let us run like a dictatorship, everything will be fine because we'll just clean house and the streets will be clean and we run it like a business. And then they also, especially if people of color weren't paying that much attention, unfortunately, the message to the blancos was, well, there's really a white Christian thing. And we're going to take the male run. And we're going to take the shit back. Did you see that the Secretary, the Department of Defense, Hexef, has now listed that Mormonism is not Christianity? So now they're starting even amongst white Christians. They're starting to cut themselves out. So y'all think y'all going to be in this? They haven't promoted a black or a woman since they got in there in the military on those high levels. They keep knocking them off the list, those promotion lists. Trump's yelling at another black woman, Christian Walker, Philly girl, by the way, Philly woman, yelling at her, gritando, hey, you may not, I don't know, there's nothing. I mean, even if you think her questions were just basic questions. Oh, you say there's voter fraud going on in Los Angeles, California with these elections. Everyone knows they count slow because it's a humongous state that LA has. I was watching on TV. LA County has more people that vote than 41 states in the country, just that one county. So it takes them a minute. Yeah, it should be faster, but that's not a cheating thing. That's an inefficient thing. And we got a lot of, we let people vote to the last second, which is, not a bad goal. Give people a chance. And by the way, if you want to go to LA County, which is they're all upset about because of the governor race, really the LA mayor's race, because Spencer Pratt just fell behind Nithya Raman over the weekend as they're counting the more progressive leaning, vote by mail votes to come in at the last second. They literally, you can walk into this place and watch them count the votes. Anyone can come off the street. There's like a little area, like a suite area, where you can sit there and watch them, and it's on cameras. You can literally sit there and watch them count these votes. So I don't know what to tell you, fam. They're just stealing your money, and they're just going to make it more difficult. They're going to bankrupt this country for themselves. The top Trump and the top tippity top people, the Geo group, these shameful, evil people. And they're going to take all the money. It's going to ruin the economy. And then along the way, they have set people of color and diverse communities, women, gay people, everybody else, back to the 50s. You have less rights in this country than you did when you were born. And your kids will have less rights unless we fight, and they fight, to claw back to where we were at 5 years ago. We'll have less rights in this country and have less economic opportunity than you did. You already seen the economic part. Even before Trump got back in, you saw that. Don't let them play us, fam. Esa gente ahí son personas humildes y inocentes. If they're real criminals, fam, if there's a couple of real criminals in there, of course, put them through the legal process and either put them in prison. And then when they're done their term, get rid of them, deport them. That's fine. I would say one or two, but there's none on their system that are filled that category. But, that's not Not all this. We're not criminals. Just because, you know, being undocumented doesn't make you a criminal. Yeah, did you break a rule? But, we've all driven through red lights. We've all driven when we had a couple too many and we were over that limit. Maybe we didn't get snagged. We've all done that. We've all fuzzed our taxes a little bit. I'll fudge my taxes. But, we've all broken rules. But that doesn't make us criminals. And that certainly doesn't make us less than human. And it doesn't certainly make it okay to use our tax dollars to torture innocent people. It doesn't make it okay if they were guilty, if they were bad people, they were murderers. I mean, we're not animals here. We have certain levels of decency that we're supposed to maintain. They're stealing our country right in our face. The only question, what are we going to do about it? And I'll point to myself first. We're not all doing nearly enough. We're not. Look at what happened in Albania. One island, they've locked down the whole country because they see what these people do. This family is doing to ruin everything. Look, they want to ruin the Knicks game tonight. Let's take a quick break. Let's watch a best of clip, and then we'll come back, talk about our march to the midterms here on the Collazo Show at the intersection of leadership, politics, y cultura.
So our family, there's those moments, the graduations, the special things that happen where you get that euphoric feeling. There's times when you work at colleagues, you guys conquered something big or whatever. So really, these emotions and these things come from community. It comes from people you do life with, right? So these moments aren't magic because you have $1 million. These things aren't magic because, I don't know, you got the best gear, the best car. They're magic because the people who are around you can celebrate with. And these moments happen, right? We just have to live in the moment.
Thank you. That's my brother, Charles DeLeon. Charles DeLeon is a Philadelphia-based mental health counselor who has a wonderful profile, mindfulness. So definitely check out Charles DeLeon. I forget off the top of my head the name of his podcast. I apologize, Charles. But really wonderful guy. I need to get him back on the show. He's gotten very involved in political commentary in this administration, the second term of Trump. So definitely want to Mindful Voices. He's an author. I actually have his book here. Actually, let me give Charles a shout out. I think he's written another book since, or he's in the process. Little Charlie Unbroken. Familia, life has hardship, but healing is possible. Charles DeLeon. What a cutie that Yumbo. You should read this book. I'm just going to leave it at that. You should read this book. A lot of healing, difficult, but you think people went through stuff. Listen to my man Charles and get inspired by Charles DeLeon. On the March to the midterm segment of the Collazo Show, we're still counting the votes in California. Things are clarifying. Yeah, we're gonna have a Latino governor in California, fam. It's really exciting. Javier Becerra has been declared the number one vote getter, which that means he automatically goes to the general election in November. I saw some differing reports. Some were saying that the Republican Steve Hilton was officially number two, but I didn't see that enough places to make it like Facebook official kind of thing. But there's most likely the Republican Steve Hilton, by the way, the only candidate who's an immigrant with an accent in the race, who's Trump's guy, will be the number two. It's interesting because instead of Tom Steyer. Interesting because I guess there's two things. One is people are definitely overhyping how well the Republicans did. Because the reality is if you add up Hilton and Bianco, the other Republican, they got 40%. That means 60% went to the non-Republicans. If you count Becerra and all these other people. So the reality is, Becerra's, and he was the more moderate of the top two Democrats. So, I don't see too many people going from Steyer or Katie Porter, who are more left than Becerra, to Steve Hilton, Trump's guy. So, this is kind of the best case scenario if Javier Becerra. Javier Becerra is a real classy guy. He's got a lot to prove to manage that state in a way that not only is efficient, and really addresses the real issues impacting that state around affordability, which predate Trump, particularly around energy costs and housing. The homelessness issue, as you know, in the big cities is a big problem. But just in general, everyone's got to move out to the desert because nobody can afford to live in LA anymore. In San Francisco, San Francisco's lost Latino and black population significantly. It's becoming a less diverse city in many ways because of this affordability issue. So there's a lot, the media industry, the Hollywood stuff. He's got a lot on his plate, but he also has to do it in a way that is not really his main skill set, which is like to inspire people and be out there and communicate. So but obviously he's got to win this election. Let's see how the next 6 months goes. The LA mayor's race, I haven't followed, it's not my big thing. It's also not super inspiring. I know a lot of people have paid attention because Mayor Karen Bash running for election. People generally not been generally really happy with her, especially as they handle the fires and some of these other affordability issues around housing, which keep being the boogie man or woman to Democratic leadership in the state. It appears over the weekend that City Councilwoman Nithya Raman, the progressive insurgent candidate, who had worked with Mayor Bass fairly well in City Council, is squeaking by the reality guy Spencer Pratt, Trump's guy. That was part of why Trump got so hyped with Kristen Welker over the weekend, because he's like, oh, they're taking it from Spencer. Spencer's a loser. He's going to lose, and that's where he needs to be. When it comes to Texas, fam, not too much has happened over the last few weeks. Obviously, things are happening there with Tallarico's campaigning. We're going to run against Ken Paxton. It remains to be seen if Graham Plattner's picadillos, the nonsense in Maine, which I'm not going to talk about enough. You get that from white Democratic political commentators love talking about Maine. So I'm not going to talk about that much, even though there are some Latinos in Maine, but not that many. I'm going to talk about like places where people live. Texas, California, Colorado, places like Pennsylvania, where there's like millions and millions of people and millions of Latinos. That's what we're going to focus on here. Anyway, I want to shout out my man, a great friend to the show. And I'll put in the notes his Substack, because I want you to read his latest Substack on faith. His article on Andres Ramirez, my dear friend, my brother. His article on the power of faith in democratic politics is a must read over the weekend. I think it's a great lesson for Democrats and political observers. He talked about his interactions recently with James Tallarico, the Texas state representative who's running for U.S. Senate. And he talks about during this event he was at with him. He quoted, quote, this is from Andres Ramirez's Substack. He quoted scripture. He meant it. In standing in that room, I felt something I haven't felt from democratic politics in a long time. A recognition that people like me, meaning people of faith, deep faith, like Andres and James, belong here too. His message is direct. Jesus liberates. Christian nationalism controls. First of all, there's a heck of a writer, and I encourage you to continue to follow his articles on politics. They're very instructive. They teach me a lot. I'm his buddy. I talk to him all the time. But it also speaks to the fact that whether it's in politics or civic life in general, we cannot see what faith means to us. And, Democrats, I think, have not only done a poor job in dismissing, in some quarters, dismissing people of fervent faith, religion, but also have been scared to talk about it, how it impacts them publicly. And I'm the first to say I was taught you don't talk about, it influences you, and it's the guiding force of my life, my Catholic faith and the teachings of Jesus. Is the reason I do this. Is the reason that I focus on helping people in my life, in my career. But I don't talk. I went a long time thinking that's not. You kind of separate those things. You keep your commentary and politics secular. And obviously, what this period has taught us is that people want to know where those values come from, and they want to know that you connect, particularly people of faith. And by the way, that's increasing in our society. More people are getting into going back to religion, especially young people, especially in the Latino community. So I thought Andres's lesson, not only from a democratic political perspective, but just from we need to share those lessons. And we also, I think, have to correct and challenge people that are using Jesus' name in the Bible to justify things that are counterintuitive of everything Jesus was about. And I think that's one of the reasons why Pope Leo is getting so much love and attention. Obviously, previously Pope Francis, is because they're speaking to the real truth of Jesus and challenging the increasing orthodoxy of Christian nationalism, Christian white nationalism in this country, which unfortunately is sort of in charge right now. So much respect to Pope Leo. Hopefully, Pope Leo gets to hang out with Bad Bunny this week in Spain. We're excited for that possibility. They're both touring in Madrid at the same time. Bad Bunny's epic concert tour continues. He performed in Madrid last night as part of, I think, the 6th of 10 dates in just Madrid. He already did Barcelona and some other. He'll be in the rest of Europe for the rest of the summer. And Pope Leo's doing his bit in Madrid and Spain this week. So hopefully I have a feeling they're going to meet at some point. That's going to be really, really exciting. Let's do another quick break. Then we'll talk about these 3 families that have been on my mind over the weekend here on the Collazo Show at the intersection of politics, leadership, politics, equal duda. I'm really bad at these buttons. I'm sorry. Let's watch a little best of clip here.
But that song in itself had everyone on my timeline, in my circle, on the phone with me through text, like, yo, have you heard this song? Have you listened to it? And it brought back just a sense of exactly what I believe he was trying to do. Brought back the sense of Puerto Rico. Like, we're in Philly and we're Puerto Ricans and we appreciate it and we aspire to be the best Puerto Ricans and we're proud of our cultura, and like the Puerto Rican parade, we want to show ourselves. But it was like, this is our signal to the world that we matter so much more. Like, Puerto Ricans matter so much more, and our history is important. And those people who have gone before us, like my grandmother, God bless her, and all those other old school Puerto Ricans have left us with so many great memories of the island, of being Puerto Rican. That's where a lot of our identity has come from.
Thank you, Christina Vega. That was from one of our great collaborators here on the Collazo Show and our previous podcast, Brands. Christina Vega is a Philadelphia-based Latina activist. She runs Love Shouldn't Hurt, which is a local domestic violence organization that focuses on supporting the victims of survivors of domestic violence and their families, their loved ones, and everyone in their network. Because if you've done any work advocating for and supporting the survivors of domestic violence, you know that it impacts everybody. And I've had many conversations really with men over the years with our interactions with Christina and her team around how domestic violence impacted them, watching their mother get their butt whipped by their dad and then having this complicated relationship with their dad the rest of their life, and feeling like, them dealing with, not having been given a healthy blueprint to have relationships with their partners, and how it's, it just, and then it happens to your sister. You want to kill the guy, but you don't want to go to jail the rest of your life. There's a lot of dynamics there. And Christina always brings a lot to the table. And Christina also is kind of one of our great Puerto Rican cultural observers, talking about the impact of Bad Bunny and what's happening with him. I want to talk about, let's get this woman on screen here. Actually, the whole family. I want to talk about the Mendez family for a second. They had a lot of great milestones this week and this weekend. If you don't know who this woman is, this is Sylvia Mendez. For those who are watching the video, to my left, but to your right, Sylvia Mendez is in front of a statue of her parents, Lupita, what was the name? And let me get the right names. Her parents, Sylvia Mendez, who just celebrated her 90th birthday. God bless that lady. She's an incredible person. And the reason why I wanted to highlight this family is last week, Felicitas Gonzalo Mendez, where her parents, Sylvia Mendez, is in front of their statue. Last week, a federal courthouse in Los Angeles was renamed the Felicitas and Gonzalo Mendez United States Courthouse. This is the first time that a federal courthouse was named after a Latina, in this case, the mother of the family, the wife of the family, Felicitas. And that was done because of years and years of advocacy of people like Congressman Jimmy Gomez. My organization, Unidos US, was a big part of it. Our president CEO was there for the unveiling of the renaming. And the reason why this family is so important is because in the early 40s, Felicitas Gonzalo wanted to enroll their kids in a better school in their local area, but they were turned away because they were Latino kids. In this case, Sylvia was of both Mexican and Puerto Rican descent. Mami era de, yo creo, Naguabo, or Naranjito, one of the ones that starts with an M. I think it was Naguabo. In the late 40s, a federal court ruled that was unconstitutional. Denying them to get into a school because of their color was unconstitutional. That court case, Gonzalez Mendez, Westminster, California was the municipality, was the precedent-setting case for Brown versus Board of Education 7 years later in the Supreme Court. So without this Puerto Rican Mexican family in the early 40s in California, fighting as humble people, fighting for their children, this woman you see on the screen, who's still alive, she just celebrated her 90th birthday. This is not ancient history, fam, is what I'm trying to tell you. We may not have had those decades and decades of desegregated schools. And by the way, they're trying to take that away slowly but surely. So this woman who's 90 years old, Sylvia Mendez, at this day, instead of just retirando and chilling, she's still advocating for the educational access for all children, regardless of what they look like, where their background is. She just celebrated her 90th birthday. Her family took her out, cantando mariachi. She was crying, emotional. Early in the week, her parents, including her Puerto Rican mother, first Latina ever named, her name is on a federal courthouse. Humble working people in the 40s and work in the fields and the agricultural sector of California made history for all of us. And we're part of an incredible civil rights history that all of us have a responsibility to continue. I can't love on these people enough, fam. And a couple other ballers I got to shout out. You know, it's baseball season, fam. It's my time of year. You know, outside of Mr. Ohtani, arguably two best players in baseball this year have been two Afro-Latino brothers, immigrants that are just fantastic players. One of them plays for my home team, but I want to talk about this brother here for a second. Yordan Alvarez, un cubano that's been a stud for the Houston Astros, won World Series, won World Series MVPs, hit a home run against the Phillies in the World Series. I don't think that ball's landed yet. It was such a monster blast. Yordan Alvarez, and this is really a story about family, and I'll go back to it's not just about Yordan, it's about the family. Yordan Alvarez's father, Agustin Alvarez, found a way to get from Las Tunas, Cuba, 12 years ago, to the Dominican Republic to get Yordan tryouts. And he didn't make it the first time. He didn't make it the second time, but Agustin Alvarez found a way to keep Yordan in Dominican Republic to train. Eventually got to Haiti as part of his refugee journey, his defecting journey. Did everything he can while he remained back in Las Tunas, Cuba. Still doesn't live in the United States, I don't think. Still lives humbly in Cuba. Got his son that opportunity because of the sacrifice and the vision and the love of Agustin and the Alvarez family for their son Yordan to follow his dream. And Yordan has fulfilled everything and more than the Alvarez family could have believed. Another young man I want to shout out, my guy, who I believe is not only the Cy Young, should be the Cy Young winner this year in National League, but as my man Santos from Baseball Aficionado said, should be the MVP of the National League, Christopher Sanchez, un Dominicano. Christopher is a total stud, left-handed pitcher. He just broke, for left-handed pitchers, the all-time scoreless streak. He didn't give up a run in like 8 games, like 50+ innings. An incredible guy. This story is not just about Christopher, it's about the family. So when Christopher was sort of an average prospect, sort of a borderline major leaguer, when he got to Philadelphia, he met a young woman named Kaimari Perez. Kaimari Perez was a Dominican immigrant young woman who had immigrated to the United States and Philadelphia specifically to go to culinary school. By the time she met Christopher Sanchez, she was already a businesswoman, had a restaurant in Camden, New Jersey, had a catering business, was already a successful person. And because of her love and dedication to Christopher Sanchez, she worked with him and developed a customized nutrition and workout program because of her experience being in culinary and nutrition world to build up his body sufficiently to get more muscle but not lose the flexibility which is so critical in pitching, to build him up and to build up his confidence to become arguably the best pitcher in baseball in 2026. An incredible story. Christopher Sanchez, Kai Mighty, I think they have another baby on the way. They're just beautiful people, very well respected in Philadelphia in the Latino community. Un saludo, my Philly Dominicans making moves out here. And, these are the kind of not just inspirational stories I want to continue to highlight here on the Collazo show, but I want people to understand none of us make it up by ourselves. None of us are self-made for real. We like to think that we did it all. But if you don't have Augustin, if Jordan doesn't have Augustin Alvarez, if Christopher doesn't have Gaimiri Perez, if I don't have all my support, if Sylvia Mendez didn't have Felicitas and Gonzalo, and if they didn't have the support from the community during those very challenging times, we wouldn't be able to take our children to desegregated schools in 2026. There's hope. There's a lot we can do, but we have to do our part and realize that those families and the loved ones that are outside every day praying in front of Delaney and Dilly and all these places, that their family member who, again, I just pointed out, are not criminals. Their own statistics tell us that. Don't die in those buildings. Don't get tortured. Don't have a miscarriage. Don't get assaulted, which we've had reports of that in Delaney as well and other locations, that they could just live another day so they can see their loved one and hopefully they'll get out of there. Thank you so much for joining the Collazo Show. Continue to subscribe. Call your member of Congress. We still have a window here in the next couple of days. Call your House member specifically. This DHS funding, unfortunately, already passed in the Senate, 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. We all need to do more, fam, because we're not in this alone. We never have been. Thank you so much and have a great week.